time for dads now. Look, it's all about dads. I don't want you talking about anything but dads, 'cause it's all dads now. It's Inside Dads.
This is Inside Dads.
We're getting inside of them. We're getting right inside.
It's a new show, everyone. This is episode 1.
This is it. This is the pilot. This is where our hair looks weird. Where where our characters aren't fully realized.
We don't have beards. Yeah, we don't know what we are yet. But you know what? We have a vision in our mind, and when I say we, I mean Abe Epperson, this guy over here. I have a co-host over there.
Hi, I'm David Bell.
Right.
David C. Bell.
And a little about us. We're not dads, so maybe we shouldn't be the one to make this.
I'm a cat dad.
You're a cat dad. You have a little.
Listen.
You have spawn.
I'm the mommy to one cat, and I'm dad to another cat. That's what's been decided in this house.
Nice.
It's complicated. Nice. It doesn't count. And in fact, I should go to jail for saying I'm a cat dad.
You should go to jail. Everyone is aware of the meme. It's been around for a while. The concept is the dad movie. It's almost as prevalent as the dad bod meme or the dad joke, at least in circles of people who follow film discourse online, which are weird people and probably who's listening to this. And Dave and I, little history, both realized early in our friendship that we had a fascination with movies that aligned with the internet's version of what a dad movie is. I
don't want to speak for you. I find it comfort in watching a dad movie.
I do. And I think it was how we were raised, and I think it has to do with societies, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That's what this podcast is about. So our goal with this podcast is we started talking the last few years about what makes a dad movie, because I've never actually seen one written down online. We've isolated subjects like, patriotism, action adventure, the idea of a sex prize, the idea of a humble sacrifice, underdogs.
Yeah, I'd say older male protagonists tend to be
seem to be
prevalent.
a more yeah. But that's just a bunch of random details. So we wanted to isolate it into a genre, which means that we have to isolate the themes, like what dramatic collisions, what resolutions, what has Hollywood been saying to everybody that this is what it means to dad.
Yes. Because, you nailed it. Because, what a horror movie is, and there's a spectrum of horror. Same with comedy. But dad is a genre, which I think it has a right to be. It definitely overlaps other genres, which you're going to learn from this series, because we are going to start by covering various genre films.
That's right.
And that's where we're starting. That doesn't mean we won't circle back to other genres, because obviously, for example, war drama, you can't just pick one. Sports films, you can't just pick one, obviously. But the point being that there is a general vibe to a dad film, and I think it's important for America and for history for somebody to quantify exactly what makes that what
and
it
we're
is.
We're it, guys.
I think we're just as qualified as anyone else, right?
I think we're the most qualified.
I think we're the most qualified more than anyone else.
So we chose for this episode, we wanted to isolate genres that are outside of dad, which, because as we said, it isn't a genre. We wanted to pick what are other types of what are dad movies typically in the genre of, and we thought of every genre. And then we realized, okay, so that's how we kind of have to do this podcast. So this time we chose law dramas. And we're not choosing the best. There's so many contributors that could be like, we could have done this episode. We could have talked about A Few Good Men. We could have talked about A Time to Kill. We could have talked about Amistad, The
Rules
Firm,
of Engagement.
Heart's War, The Client,
Right.
The Chamber, The Rainmaker. Yeah, so there's so many like Tom Clancy kind of adjacent stuff. But this time we chose to talk about 2014's The Judge.
Robert
Yeah.
Downey Jr., the Judge.
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall. It's Roberts. Vincent D'Onofrio's there. My
Yeah,
goodness.
yes. Jeremy Strong's there.
Jeremy Strong. This was
Vera Farmiga's there.
I don't know if you know this, and I'm almost certain you know this because I mention it all the time. This was shot in a town that I lived with. Not with.
Lived with.
This was shot in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, where I had an apartment. A beautiful town. It is now. They shot the new Dexter there. They also shot Labor Day there.
Nice.
When I visited not too long ago, the antique store, which you see in this, where the bumpkin lawyer works, I went in there not too long ago, like last holiday.
You mean Dax Shepard?
Yes, Dax Shepard. And that place, it's like run by this folksy old guy who knows more about Hollywood than me now, because he's just like, yep, I'm going to be in a film next year too. Like, that's all he does.
Yep.
That's all this town does now, is they just
Working at the film, man.
rent themselves to studios that want a folksy town. That's it.
And it's Massachusetts playing for Indiana.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Which it did. I think in Labor Day, it also plays like a folksy. I don't know what it is about this town. I think it's because it's isolated and it's easy to shut down.
That's probably all right.
Yeah.
So, Dave.
I'm Dave.
Hit me with like a log line or...
All right.
What's The Judge?
The Judge is about a big city lawyer played by Robert Downey Jr., who goes home because his mother dies. And while home, it's very clear that he hasn't visited home in a while. His brothers, Jeremy Strong and Vincent D'Onofrio, are there. He has a falling out with his father, Robert Duvall, who plays the town judge. It's very clear that they hate each other. It's a bad visit. He goes to a bar, gets drunk, and makes out with a young woman. He briefly reconnects with an old girlfriend, and then he's about to fly out, and then he gets a call that his father hit and killed a man with his car. The man having been a criminal that he let off easy for beating his girlfriend or like threatening his girlfriend, and then he killed his girlfriend as a result, and then went to jail for 30 years, and he just got out. And Robert Duvall maintains that he doesn't remember hitting the guy, and basically Robert Downey Jr. has to defend his own father on a murder trial. His own father that, of course, he has problems with.
Who is a judge.
Who's a judge, hence the name.
Yeah, and he's the lawyer's son. And so it's about
fast-talking lawyer from the city goes to the small town to defend his father, who's a gritty small town judge who's disappointed in him. It's so much drama,
so much law. All right, let's not edge any further. I like how you went right up to like Act 3 because we got to save a little sizzle, for the ending. So let's go into our first segment, and it's the most of this segment of our show.
It's the torso.
It's the torso, the beefy dad torso.
Yep.
Let's get inside this dad. So this is where we're going to, really inspect the movie, put it under a microscope, and try to isolate tropes that make this movie dad.
What makes it a dad film? What makes
it a dad film?
This, and again, I think what is going to happen for the section is it's going to be, I used the word vibes before, and I can't stress that enough, is that until we can start finding the formula, I think we're going to be throwing stuff out and seeing what sticks, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
As we get movie to movie, we'll see a pattern. And so it's like maybe the stuff that we think makes this a dad film.
Right. And we have the repository in our head of all the types of films, so we'll be able to kind of isolate it as we go.
Right.
You know?
Can I start with an overall observation?
Yes, please.
Is that I think that what we're going to find is that a lot of dad films are just other genres made to be manlier. And what I'm saying, when I say that, is that this is the plot of a quote unquote chick flick, a romantic comedy. It's a big city lawyer going to the small country to find romance and to reconnect with family. The only difference is that these are men. Robert Downey Jr., the first thing he does in this film is piss on another man.
That's all right. That's my first one I was going to start with, which is that maybe that's a trope. Pissing. Yeah. I think, well, that's what you were going to start with, huh? Yeah, well, I'm just going kind of chronologically as I watched it. So.
Shout out to the credits, which I think it's the credits, which is immediate shots of old nostalgia, old film, baseball, old pictures, like a baseball glove on the shelf. I think we're going to find that's a big pattern, which is good old days.
Just
nostalgia.
good old days. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think it segues perfectly into, I mean, it's setting up Robert Downey Jr.'s lack of reverence for anything,
right?
And his kind of mean streak, the thing that he gets in trouble. He's a bad boy. Even back when he goes back in town, everyone is like, he has the idea of being, disloyal or, like not, he doesn't stick around. This is a town where people do stick around. The love interest is Vera Farmiga, who's like basically says to him, yeah, so basically you're I just want to fuck you and then I know the deal. You're going to bounce, you know? And he's like, well, what if I was like more than that kind of stuff? But yeah, he starts and we start crafting that image by having him piss on his lawyer opponent.
Yep. In the bathroom to show, he's tough. He's a guy.
And and it has all the Robert Downey Jr. like chatter and banter.
Yeah.
Like where he talks over someone who's barely reacting to the thing he just said or did. So he's like, so someone's like, oh, you pissed on me. He's like, do you want to finish what you followed me into the pisser to unload? Which I think is a really good line. And then he throws a paper towel in the trash like a total badass, which comes up later. But it's just the idea of he's pissing on people and winning games, baby. You know that old trope.
Oh, yeah.
Where that's what winners do.
If this was a woman character, it'd be like big city lady lawyer, right? It'd be the same idea. It's just reskinned. I can't stress enough. Like there's a part later where he rides his bike down a country road and puts his arms out. That is a romantic comedy scene. What they do is they make him eat shit. And that's what makes it a quote unquote like guy version, I think. Right.
I think there's a lot of itemized differences. Like the DNA is slightly different. I mean, I know what you're saying, but like, I don't know if in like in the American society that we have, necessarily that we would say the flaw of like if it was just a chick flick, if the flaw was necessarily that she is disloyal. I think that's something reserved for like bad boys, and that's its own trope, right?
Well, they would so again, when we talk about the idea of like a dad film or a chick flick, we're not talking about like anybody can enjoy a dad film or chick flick. We're talking about the stereotypes that Hollywood loves to associate
normative
with
terms.
Yeah, just making that clear to people. And for that reason, she would be like single, right?
Yeah, it would be some other bullshit.
It would be,
there
would be a love life thing. In this, he is one of the. I think it's going to have constant dad energy. He is divorced or divorcing.
Yeah. On the way out is what it seems.
The movie literally tunes out his wife while she's talking to him.
That scene starts, by the way. So he learns in court that his mom died. And then the next scene is him talking to his daughter, and he's hosing down some flowers in his backyard. Dave, this movie's just so far just piss. Just piss.
It's pissing. You're right. He's pissing on everything.
He's pissing on everything. But yeah, that scene continues and he is just just straight up, they're at 11. They're just like, fuck you, I hate you, trouble at home, wife
Yep.
is sad, he works too hard.
I want to note though, because I think this is another this movie. It's dense with dad tropes, as far as I'm concerned, because he loves his daughter. They're great together. She's the smart, clever little kid, says funny things. I think we're gonna see this pattern when it comes to father-daughter stuff. Or father-son, but mostly father-daughter, because I think there's going to be a lot of reverence for like father-daughter stuff where the daughter's an angel. And in this case, he's a great dad. She loves him. What the mom is mad about is like, do you know her teacher's last name? Blah, blah, blah. And that's a classic divorce guy trope, right? Which is, my daughter loves me. I'm a great dad. I just don't remember the little things. I don't pick her up, you know?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of picking kids up late, I think is going to be a thing. So they love to do this, which is like, it's like justifying bad behavior, which is like, yeah, you don't care about your kids' lives, but you love them and they love you and you have fun together.
Yeah, there's something to be said about like in these tropes, the writers thereof go the ineffable things, the things you can't really write down.
Right.
That's what I take care of. I'm teaching her, you know, the things that you would never teach her. And it's like, well, yeah, by definition, you're defining what you do in this parental relationship as the stuff that I don't do. But like, what is that stuff?
Right.
And I do want to take this moment, and something I realized when I was looking at the movies that we're gonna cover and the movies that we might have covered. I think actually we get our first like real like surface level writing level trope, which is the inciting incident, or early on where it's declared clearly to the audience that a tragedy has occurred.
Yes.
Because we get this a lot, and this movie, it's mom dying. And it's just, I think what it does is it really sets up this concept where you're like, someone needs to help solve something because tragedy is horrible and we all want to get out of it. And that's just true of dads. You know,
Yep.
Dads are closed and want, like, that's something we define dads as we go. Mostly dads don't want to be there with the grief. So it's like having someone to like coach us out of that is like, feels like a necessity, which is hilarious because I don't know if in reality that's necessarily true. But in this movie, we get, after the inciting incident, we arrive at Dave's old place that he lived with.
Right. I also want to note, because the mom dying, I suspect in most of the dad movies we cover, women are in danger. And what I mean by that is they will die. They will die from various ailments, or maybe even get murdered. There's going to be a reverence for women, I think, where women are treated a specific way. They're often going to be wives and daughters, right?
Right.
And yeah, they're going to die a lot. I just feel like that's going to be true.
Or they're going to be Jezebels.
Right.
Yeah, like we have those tropes.
I'm glad you said it exactly like that. I'm so happy.
Here's the thing, though, because like that's another way of saying what you just said, or a more contentious way of saying it. And I'm not here to say who's right here, but like you can say that women are precious and there's a pedestal thing, or they're written out of the movie.
Yes. Well, no, that's what I mean, is that the movie's going to treat them with a certain reverence that conveniently writes them out of the movie.
Right, exactly.
Women are treated a certain way that makes it so that the actresses are treated another way.
It's a dad movie. A bunch of dads are watching it. We don't want women here. We want to see a bunch of dudes hanging around having a dude time.
We want to see Vincent D'Onofrio as a macho brother, which just real quick, Vincent D'Onofrio is such a good fucking actor that he's playing the brother and the judge, and he's killing it. And it's just like, you don't even need to be killing it right now, Vincent D'Onofrio. You don't need to be doing a good job, but you're doing a great job.
You're doing he's just like on the side, just hitting dingers, man. Yeah, this is essentially like, it's really weird because it is like chick flick. But it's also like everything has man cave vibes, you know?
Right.
And that's something we're going to unpack a little bit more later. But I want to just keep moving forward because as more details from the movie kind of arise, it's like you get a better picture, right? So, yeah, the first thing we see is let's talk about Robert Duvall in this movie.
Yeah. So do we first see him as a judge doing judge
Yeah,
stuff?
we see him. Robert Downey Jr. comes in and goes to see Dad in his element, and he's reminding a plaintiff that is an affirmation a man says in court.
Yep.
So the first thing we get is this. He defines what a man is, and Dad is a coach. He's a life coach, and he's like Ted Lassoing the world using the greatness of the American court system.
Yes.
Which is funny because I can't say it without laughing. But
I want to talk about the justice system and how it's depicted in this film. I'll save that to near the end because it is fucking wild. I didn't even notice it the first time I watched this, but this movie points to a very specific problem in the system and completely ignores it. Doesn't even recognize it.
Doesn't. Yeah.
But this actually. So what happens in this first scene feels very Dad to me, which is that he's doing a battle between it's a fucking child support, right?
Right.
So the child support battle, the guy's like, I don't got no money, and he's like, well, I saw that really nice truck you had outside, so here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna sign over the truck to her. You're gonna go to fucking Tommy's shop down on whatever street because I'm from around here. You see, you asked for so and so, not his son, so and so. And he's like, and you're gonna take the money off of that. So what we're seeing from this is he's a country boy, right?
Yep. Small town.
What we're also seeing, though, is a dad trope that we're going to see, which is the unconventional or clever, like the Sherlock Holmes types. The I'm going to do something within the system.
Clever. Yeah.
That is clever and neat. And that's what we're seeing is that, like, oh, he doesn't play by the rules necessarily, but he also is working within the system. So it's like, he's not saying like anything rebellious. He's just like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get our hands dirty. We're going to get into it.
Yeah. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because I want to backpedal, but just because you mention it, it's so relevant that it's how far these movies go to really show that exact trope so that they isolate it. Because in a few scenes, they go to a bar where all the brothers go to the bar just to have a drink after they've kind of all landed. And one of the bar patrons goes, your father thinks he can run this town. Your father's a piece of shit.
Right.
And of course, they're immediate rednecks because that's how you do people who are bad now. And they almost fight. But Robert Downey Jr. saves the day with psychological attorney warfare.
Yes, with Sherlock Holmesness, where he's like, "Oh, I bet you have a DUI. Who's got this? Who's got the domestic violence?" And then he like talks the way out where it's in the most annoying way of like, "If you fight us, here's what's gonna happen." Blah 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 blah. We're gonna see you.
Yeah, it's kind of like father like son. But I just wanted to isolate that concept that it's like important that our main characters are the ones that we admire. Choose violence as the last course of action.
Yeah.
And I think that is super Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
sorry for this courtroom scene.
Yeah.
A line that I wrote down and I'm sure you noted, you flagged, because we're talking about cleverness. And here's the first big reverence for the system.
Yeah.
The quote, "You're standing in one of the last great cathedrals left in this country." He says about the court.
Hell yeah.
The
dude.
idea that this movie establishes really quickly, and it's throughout. Robert Duvall's character, one of the biggest things about him is he's going to stand back and let the system decide.
Yes, that's right.
He's going to be respectful in court. It doesn't matter if he is guilty or not. He's going to do what's said of him. He's not going to lie under oath, all that. And this is us establishing that, which is that Robert Downey Jr., slick talking city lawyer, doesn't respect the system necessarily.
Nuh-uh. Oh, and so that we have our conflict between dads, son and dad, or they are both dads.
Robert Duvall respects the system.
Dad
God
judge
damn it.
and son lawyer.
This is the greatest country on earth.
And so you know that the end all resolution is going to be, I'm proud to have you as my lawyer, son.
Yeah,
You know?
I will say that's one of the things, and I think is going to happen in most dad films. And maybe this is because we've watched a lot of movies, but they're also extremely easy to tell where they're going to go, just like a
Right.
romantic comedy or any, most genres.
There's like, everything's kind of a binary system because you either zig or you zag, you know? Like there's not much else. Otherwise, you're just talking about nonsense. Another detail we get fairly early on is when we're meeting the family, because now obviously Robert Downey Jr. comes to live at the house, the family house, like Robert Duvall's house, and we learn that Vincent D'Onofrio was on course to be like a major baseball player, like a star. But while in high school, Robert Downey Jr. was driving, and he's kind of been blamed his whole life, which we get details further along, but just fast forwarding, he was high.
Yeah,
He's blamed for ruining his life because he like hurt his arm.
he was being
that-
a real early Robert Downey Jr. type.
Devil may care. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get the bar scene. And here's the thing that I noticed is that like more on the the violence aspect is like we don't love lawyers in dad movies, but we love like like JAG or military lawyers.
Yes.
And this one isn't a military, but like I think it gets away with it because we have several scenes where Robert Downey Jr.'s main issue is that he's that fast talking city lawyer. So it like embraces the trope and then like cures him of the trope, you know?
We do this with Robert Downey Jr. specifically. Charming asshole. That's a big dad trope. Again, Sherlock Holmes, by extension, Dr. House. Charming asshole or smart asshole, clever asshole, where that's what they're establishing. They're also doing something to justify this because so you're right, is that most movies, it's like lawyers, we don't love them. There's law movies where we're, not against the lawyers. This town has more criminals than Gotham. Like, did you notice that? It is filled with lowlives, and I'm like, where the fuck are all these criminals coming from?
They're all the same, by the way. They're all immediate rednecks.
They look identical. They all look like the same rednecks.
And they're always
coming
like,
from
fuck you.
a town like this, specifically this town, but like the towns around, there were rednecks, and yes, they all kind of dress alike because they all dress for work. Like, that's the thing. They're all farmers and shit. They're not bad people. They're not all
in this movie they are
monsters. In
well,
this
I guess
town,
not because the
they're
jury
all
is
monsters.
yeah, the jury is like common America.
Yeah.
The lawyer class is kind of like salt of the earth, but like the good kind.
Yeah.
And then the lower class is salt of the earth, but the bad kind.
Yeah.
And it's just like such selective reasoning for this demographics.
I think we're going to get a lot of Heartland of America shit in these.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this one seems to treat... Again, it's really funny because it's trying to be a movie about how this area is not bad, but all the locals are monsters. They're all henchmen.
They're all henchmen.
At least all the guys, except for this family. And like it's just wild. Like I don't know what's going on in this town or why there's so much crime, but they need to figure that out.
They need cooler fucking shit is what they need to do, Dave.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that after the bar scene, because this happens a lot in bar scenes, is the aftermath of bar, which is you drank a bunch of beer. We get another pissing scene, Dave.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Lots
is
of
that's
pissing in
3
this.
pisses. Oh, not really 3, but I still call using a hose to hose down. I don't know. It's just all so sudden.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
all so sudden with the.
Do you mean the
pissing
pee in the
this
cup
movie.
scene?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like pissing this cup?
Yeah, they're like, they describe, like, oh, are you going to go in there? Are you going to go in the bathroom? Are
Right.
you going to watch him piss? Are you going to watch this old man piss?
There's a poop scene in this too. It's bonus.
Yeah, there is.
Again, it's manly. You're skipping over a key component of this film, though, which
Sure.
is that at the bar after law talking these guys, he impresses a young woman there, and they go
that's
and
right.
they make out in the phone booth. Which
That's right.
There's a phone booth. That's weird.
I mean, It's a
And
bar. It's
There's
got weird
definitely
shit.
some like. What do you think? First base, second base.
I think there's fondling and I think there's making out. Yeah.
Okay, that's
So
key.
keep that in mind. Keep it in mind because it's going to become a major thought experiment for Robert Downey Jr. as his
Yeah.
life falls apart.
I have as a romantic comedy.
Mm-hmm.
There is one other element that makes this similar, which is that romantic comedies and chick flicks will often drop really fucked up shit in it every now and then. And so just throwing that out because this movie is
It's
about to do
melodrama,
something
baby.
that it has no business doing as far as I'm concerned. But
Like, why would you do this, the judge?
yeah, why do we need
Yeah.
this plot? This movie's like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's
like,
and
I
it's
don't-
got to fill it with like tragedy or possible tragedy.
And then this.
Yeah, and also complexity that it's not needed. But
Yeah.
okay, okay. So yeah,
I love this
so
film.
we've gotten the info. Everything it's all set, and we're at like the police station. Because it's like he went out and he killed a guy apparently, and we get this back and forth which Dave talked about in terms of he was gonna fly home because he was pissed off. He was like, "I'm leaving tomorrow morning, and you can't stop me." And so he's on the flight, and D'Onofrio calls and he's like, "You son of a bitch! You never listen to me. Do one thing." And he's like, "Well, unless like there's a dead body." I'm not coming back. And he's like, there is a body. He's like, all right. So he comes
I'm
back.
coming back.
And so Robert Downey Jr. immediately asserts himself in the police station because he finds out that all these cops are up to no good. And even though Robert Duvall is like, everyone on the side of justice, I give the benefit of the doubt. Robert Downey Jr. understands that people want things. And he understands that these cops are just giving you the old switch-a-do and treating you one way, but in reality, they're just trying to butter you up and get you to piss in a cup and take your DNA and try to and have an interview. And he's like, you don't talk to police. What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
So we kind of get a little bit of a shine of what's coming to pass, which is that the big city lawyer has a point. But the old timey judge like has the hope that this is how like what tradition stands for. You hope that you could look across the aisle. You hope you could look at your fellow man and be like, yeah, you're a quality person. I can trust you. But there is no trust. So that's another thing that I think these movies tend to play with is that do you have hope or do you have fear of ultimately of your fellow man?
Right, and that plays into what the case is around. Because can I describe without
Please
a
do.
little bit of spoilers? He gave this man a minimum sentence for, I believe, shooting at his girlfriend's house. Was that it?
Yeah, and also I think domestic violence at one point.
Yeah,
or implied, but it
he
wasn't.
gave this guy the minimum sentence, and then he got out in 30 days and drowned his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Now, this is a good case of women dying as a tool because at no point does this film stop and point out how, fucked up this is for women.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of like, it's so fucked up that
Yeah, it's
like,
fucked up by proxy.
We do this all the time, like women in domestic violence situations who will end up getting killed because the cops are like, we can't do anything until they've already done anything. The how hard it is to get a restraining order in this country, etc. But none of that is touched upon. It's just about how this happened on his watch. And he's mad that he gave this guy a second chance and he used it to drown his girlfriend. We never hear from like the girlfriend's family or anything like that. That's not represented. They just want this guy to be a real piece of shit because the idea is then Robert Duvall is accused of hitting and killing him with his car, and we're not supposed to feel bad for this guy, which we don't. But it's just very funny how it's not about the system. It's not about how domestic violence leads to murder or how the system treats abusers or lets them off. It's about, I made the one mistake of giving this young boy a second chance.
Right.
It's the bad apples.
That's the bad apples, and it's also the job of Robert Duvall to basically be guardian of the town.
Yeah.
Like, everyone should feel like they're in charge is the other thing,
Right.
which is fun. That's fun. That's a bunch of people who think they're in charge. That's fun.
So that's the situation. Is this guy who killed his girlfriend just got out of jail,
Mm-hmm.
and Robert Duvall is So there's the motive, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to move right along.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out a scene where at one point when he goes down to the basement and sees Jeremy Strong and watches some old home videos with mom and such, he goes down to the freezer and gets a bag of peas and he starts icing his neck. And that's a thing that we need to do in any dad movie is to show clear signs of aging.
Right.
Like, what is even that injury? There's nothing screenplay-wise that's justifying that I can think of why he's icing his neck.
So-
it's not like he got in a fight.
I think this is another dad film trope. It's not the injuries. It's that any normal human being would go to CVS and get an ice pack. They're going
Right.
to use meat. They're going to use food.
Yeah,
That's
they're
going to be a
use
thing that
make
dads do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we understand what the problem is. We don't need a fancy concoction made by some big city doctor.
Exactly.
You know?
You got to slap a steak on that shiner.
Slap a steak is just as good, motherfucker.
Yep.
That's right. And so I just wanted to point out that little delicious details. But that scene is more importantly, I wanted to point out the old home videos of mom and the young brothers, because, playing, and a very sweet song starts playing in the movie. And this is a case that you're allowed to cry, or at least activate feelings as a man
Right.
when you're remembering families.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And that's something that's going to come up.
It's okay
but
to
I
cry in
also-
a dad film.
Here's the other thing, Dave, is we're a bunch of pessimistic big city podcasters.
Yeah.
But like I feel things, and this one activates my feelings as a man.
Nice. We
Yeah,
should
it's just-
always call that. We should flag
We should always
that when
call it
that
out.
happens.
Yeah. I think you'll find that I am I'm strong, but I'm also very sad.
I've cried during movies. Not this one. I don't know.
Not this one?
Yeah.
I haven't cried. I'm not saying cry. I would,
No, yeah,
I would
choke
never
up,
say
choke
cry.
up.
No, I'll tell you if I cried. No, this is just activate feelings where I go like, yes, the music is doing home videos of mom and the brothers and the situation that Robert Downey Jr. is in. All of it kind of comes to mull over. I love that the maneuver comes in where, because Robert Duvall doesn't want Robert Downey Jr. to be his lawyer yet because he's, not worthy. So the
Right.
maneuver that Jax Shepard comes in and is just this worthless lawyer
He's just such a piece of shit.
that Robert Duvall has selected, because the movie isn't about keeping an innocent man out of jail because life would be ruined for him and, like he doesn't deserve it or whatnot. It doesn't matter. It's finding a justification for telling his son that he's proud of him.
Yes.
That's what the movie's actually about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll get to the ending where he puts his dad, he basically grills his dad on the stand about if his dad loves him. More
Yeah.
or less, that's what it
Which
all
is
comes
not
to.
how it works, but it's like, I'll allow it.
I'll
I
allow
love it. But then we get the intro, which is the best intro in the movie, which is the opposing lawyer, the opposing
Yeah,
dad
here we
lawyer,
fucking go.
who will assassinate our dad lawyer, and his name is an actor, Billy Bob Thornton.
It's one of those where it's like, of course. Of course. He is the slick talking Southern lawyer. And look at him. He brought his own fold out cup, which I guess is supposed to be something scary.
Yeah, let's talk about that because all right. So
Okay. I have okay.
you have a theory. I just want to
have a
paint
theory.
for the listeners the intro. He's all business. His first image is that he asks the judge 2 questions about worry to file a motion to change venue. Would it work? And the judge is like, no, I wouldn't do it. So he just doesn't file a motion. In other words, the first like 3 lines is that he's not going to waste anyone's time, which is something that a big city lawyer might do to
Right.
try to get it, So he is like, we know immediately that he is just like efficient. He's a killer just because of the way he's presenting himself. And then we get, this prop where he has this water cup that like extends like a telescope.
He takes it out of his briefcase, yeah.
And it has a sexy lady on top, so you know he fucks.
I think so. I think there's 2 things. The movie wants to show he's efficient and
Right.
he's prepared, right? He
Right.
has everything. There's another layer to this, and I have to briefly
Right.
talk about my own father. Because
Okay.
my own father,
This inside dad's
the
baby,
most
inside dad.
thing he does is he loves to do projects. He made his own luggage for plane trips. And what I
Yes.
mean by made, I mean out of like wood and like plastic, like a box that he would bring on planes that totally won't get him shot by the TSA. He's made his own like for his Kindle, like a holder out of brass. He's like melted stuff down. He makes stuff. He fixes stuff. And he loves gizmos.
Yes.
Gizmos.
Gizmos,
Dads
little.
love
What's your purpose?
gizmos.
One very tiny little subsection, but I'm going to use
really
it all the
bright
time.
flashlights, you know,
Like a knife
cool
holster.
tools, Swiss Army knives,
Yeah.
those like credit card knives.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing is he is the superior dad, Billy Bob, because he has a gizmo.
He's
and
got gizmos, baby.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of in a playground, a kid taking out a cooler action figure. Or something like that. Like that's what's
Right.
happening. He's got a cool gizmo.
That's right. That's right. It also,
We
I think,
covet
is
that. We covet it.
the sound effect when it comes out is like a sharp, like sword sound.
Right.
So it's also, I think, getting into our monkey brain by saying he's the lawyer equivalent of like a killer.
Yeah.
He'll murder you with his sexy lady on top water cup.
Right.
Very weird, but very dad. as
Very
we're finding.
dad. Yes.
Very dad. They know what they're doing here, these writers and directors. And then Robert Duvall and Robert Downey Jr. kind of go to the scene of the crime to kind of go over some of the facts. And Robert Duvall has a great moment, and this is where we get some old history boomer shit that I love, which is that he starts talking about his legacy and how he can't have his legacy ruined by events and details at the end of his life. Because as we saw in the home movie section, we saw that, there's something else that's kind of happening, which is Robert Duvall has cancer.
I want to talk about that
Yeah,
because he has colon cancer, the most dad type of cancer.
that's
right.
Pooping.
It affects men. This movie actually does a good thing, which is they're showing like, he could have caught it early, but he didn't get his butt checked. Got to get your butt checked. And they throw that out. It affects men, but also butts are funny. So like
Butts are
it's a
funny.
whole thing where it's like,
Yeah.
he gets chemo in a fishing cabin, the most dad way to get chemo.
While playing chess.
Yeah. Again,
Just old man shit.
they know they're tugging at our heartstrings, but they also know butts are funny. Like later, he has to wash poop off his dad, and it's tender, but also funny because it's poop.
It's Robert Duvall's pooping on Robert Downey Jr. right
Yeah.
now, and you're watching it. But this is important because if it comes out that he's had cancer for like a year, and they're using as a part of this case, he lost time and he can't remember doing the crime because that's just something that happens when you're doing chemo, then that retroactively it begs the question of when you were doing your job as a judge, you were not of sound mind. You
Right.
didn't necessarily make the right cases. So all of his cases...
They set it up where he can't remember his bailiff's name.
Right. Gus.
Yeah.
And so it's this... So because they have these things swirling around, we have an opportunity. It might be very true that that's why he lost time. We don't know. But Robert Duvall is strongly an opponent to using this strategy because he's like, that would ruin my legacy because someone would just learn about details at the end of my life and then they would, and all of my life is being written as a joke. And he gives 2 examples
He sure
of
does.
cases that this happened. Go for it, Dave.
He uses Grant and Reagan.
Ulysses S. Grant and Ronald Reagan.
Great men who just had one problem at the end. It's such a dad example.
It's such a dad example. Yeah.
And again, it's reverence. People will question the system if they question me.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather go to jail for murder than people question this great system we have.
That's right. That is absolutely right. And because that's just what you do as a man. You have legacy and you stand for something. We kind of cut around to another scene where Robert Downey Jr. finds his old Metallica T-shirt, and he gets on his bicycle, and he has that scene that you talked about where he's he's flying and he eats shit, and he gets picked up by Vera Farmiga and her daughter. And we learn that the daughter is the obviously, as we talked about, the woman that he hooked up with, or didn't hook up with, but made out with.
He hooked up
at the bar.
That's a hookup.
That's a hookup.
She is so horny for him.
She's so horny.
She is so into him, and I think this is going to be when this comes up a dad thing. Yeah. So Robert Downey Jr. has sex with how old would you say she is? Like 20? She's going to college. She's a college age. Not sex, sorry. He made out. He made out with a college age girl.
Yeah, she's like 20, probably.
He's what? His 50s?
Still got it. That's the thing, is that's the flex that we're doing here. That's weird, and as Dave said, doesn't belong in the movie. Fucking your possible daughter is the weirdest dad
we
flex.
hadn't gotten to that, but yes. What he then realizes is that she had her 9 months after they dated.
Yeah, if she's 20, that was when I was here.
Yeah, we might as well spoil this whole thing, because there's a subplot where Robert Downey Jr. has to sit there and go, did I make out with my daughter? And they show him this because she sexually bites her hair. And then later, his other daughter, his young daughter, shows up and also bites her hair.
Also, Vera Farmiga's daughter is she's studying law.
Right. So a few elements. One, she's not the victim, right? She's the predator. His poor dick. His poor dick that she's hunting.
Poor dick.
She's this 20-year-old who's into, and I get Robert Downey Jr., he's a snack. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's realistic in who he is, but I would say this is the 1% of the time this is the case.
Probably true. Yeah. But I think it's the concept that for all other dads vicariously, still got it. Could totally fuck my daughter. Total Trump shit, dude.
Right. That's the thing. So I think they brought this in to be like, we're having fun still. Let's do a fun subplot where he thinks he fucked his daughter. Made out with.
But it's the same shit.
So weird and inappropriate.
Right. It's so inappropriate. It's not what this movie. I mean, I don't mean it as like clutch my pearls, but it's like, because I mean that would be a legitimate like,
No,
right.
it's a real like.
It's more of like, why the judge? Yeah.
What's going on?
You're just cleaning Robert Duvall's poop out of his ass, and now you're doing this to me?
Right.
Like,
it has
your goal.
It's so not anything to do with the rest of the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and of course, he's also boning her mom.
Yeah.
And it's like, and she never finds out that Robert Downey Jr. made out with her daughter, who, spoilers, isn't his daughter. No. Thank goodness. It's his niece.
Yeah. So it doesn't really change literally anything.
Yes.
And it also complicates a family that we have met, where it's like, oh, he doesn't know he has a daughter. Like, he has a family with like multiple children.
Yeah. What we learn is that she slept with Vincent D'Onofrio.
When he ran away.
Yeah, as like a rebound. And Robert Downey Jr. is like briefly mad at that. No one tells Vincent D'Onofrio. We
just fucking
and Robert Downey Jr. just lives with multiple secrets, that he has a secret niece, and that he also made out with his secret niece at a bar.
Hell yeah, dude.
What the fuck?
What the fuck is
This
this
is like
movie?
Game of Thrones all of a
I
sudden.
love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
But
I do think it's, well, just going back to what you said, it really is the still got it thing where
Right.
it's like, it's really weird because there's like we said the scene where his young daughter bites her hair and I thought in that moment. So what I thought was happening was that the first time I saw this was not that was a sign that the other girl was his daughter too.
Mhm.
I thought it was him realizing the shame of what he did, of like, this girl is just a kid who I
Right.
made out with. No, that's never addressed. The age is never addressed.
It has to deal with the daughter aspect.
Right. He never is like, oh, I shouldn't have made out with that 20-year-old at the bar. No, that's fine. It's that, oh, I shouldn't do that in my hometown where I fucked everybody like I'm a stray cat, just dicking my way around this town.
Dicking my way around this hick town.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's the moral. The moral isn't, don't make out with a random 20-year-old girl who's both while you're drunk at a bar, Robert Downey Jr.
Dads.
No, it's watch where you put that dirty dick because you might accidentally fuck your own daughter. That's the moral.
Welcome to the judge. At one point, so he explains, like, I want to mention this scene because it's not relevant, load bearing, or anything, but I just think it's funny because they actually stop and do some dad jokes just in the middle of the movie for a good time.
Right.
He explains to like Dax Shepard that he's like the jury's that they want ideally are moon landing truthers, which I think is funny. But we get a short montage of him asking the jury one by one if they have bumper stickers on their car and what are they. And I want to point out one in particular, which is a guy goes, wife and dog missing, reward for dog.
And everybody laughs.
We hear clapping, Dave.
Yeah.
It's an amazing moment.
Yeah, it's
where
like, do these people not have the internet? Like, what is happening?
What is happening in this archaic town? Everyone thinks that shit's hilarious.
Nobody has heard of that bumper sticker before.
And it's played off as like a wholesome beat of, look, this is what humanity really is.
Right.
And it's like a wife joke.
You notice that he axes all the women.
All the women
just
because they're
men.
like granola. He's like, get out of here. She's like, coexist. Get out of here.
Yep.
You know, and all the dudes are like,
Confederate
guns.
flag middle finger, and they're like,
And
let's
he's
keep
like,
that
all
guy.
right. Yeah. But also making fun of them because it's all peppered with we want the idiots. We want the dads, essentially, the moon landing truthers. I just think that that's a weird kind of hypocrisy that like dad movies seem to have. We need to be a joke, but we also are the ones who need to be taken most seriously.
Yeah.
There's something about that. So yeah, Vera Farmiga and Robert Downey Jr. have a little fuck date. Yeah. And it kind of falls apart because Robert Downey Jr. has insecurities about being flighty and unloyal. And he's the one who brings them kind of bare. She's like ready to fuck, but he's like, well, you think I'm this way. Also because he made out with her daughter. So that's a thing that's on his mind. Yeah. But it's a very steamy scene, Dave, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's in a diner. So they're gonna
with
fuck
a waterfall behind them, which, you know, as we all know, is a euphemism for just coming.
Yeah, those are the Shelburne Falls potholes, I believe they're called. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yep. And she leaves and she says she's gonna play with herself and think of him.
Yeah.
And then he drinks some milk, Dave.
Right. Did she say milk? Drink some milk?
Robert Downey Jr. drinks some milk.
That's fucked up.
I thought so. That's why I wanted to make sure you knew. She's like, I'm gonna play with myself and think of you, and he goes, "Oh, drink some milk."
Drink some,
That's weird.
Weird.
That's a weird fucking scene. Anyway, this is the scene after that where we get Robert Duvall pissing and shitting himself. Another erotic banger of a scene. Right. And then we get another scene with Robert Downey Jr. and his daughter. and she says she wants to be a race car driver and thinks it would be a good idea to let her drive. How good would this movie be if a second manslaughter / possible murder by a car happened?
Oh,
like
yeah.
this whole small town is terrorized by
They
this
just
law
keep,
family.
Yeah, hitting dirt bags with their car. Just compounding trials.
And then we get the scene where, the daughter flies back home. She plays with her hair. You mentioned all this stuff. So now he's got it in his head. And then we get a story, which let's pivot back to dad stuff.
Yeah.
We get the story where they have kind of a heart-to-heart where Robert Downey Jr. asks Robert Duvall, hey, Dad, what was the best lawyer you've ever known? And we hear the story of Henry Shaw and the concept of the decent man, which is basically a vile murderer basically in town killed someone. And the town is really out for blood. And the court appoints Henry Shaw to defend him, which he could deny at any time and say, I don't want to, this is a vile murderer and it would go against my ethics, which you can do. Duvall makes the case that he did it because he believed in the law, God damn it.
Yep.
Even if he was going to get spit upon by his fellow man and no one ever sat near him in church, that's how far our principles as dads need to go. That's
Right.
what Hollywood is telling us, even if he gets spit upon and disagreed with. And I think that's a really interesting notion we're going to see in a lot of dad movies, is the idolization of the Henry Shaw and the idea of decency.
Yes. Again, the system, decency, respect, reverence.
Traditionalism.
We're going to see, it's going to be, through and through. I think that's going to be the common thread, like that really binds a lot of these
really
together.
binds a lot of, but it also binds other movies. So we'll keep inspecting.
Mm-hmm.
Our work is not yet over in the dad minds.
Oh, we've only just begun.
We've only just begun. But this movie all comes to a head during a tornado, and we get 3 tornadoes barking at each other. The Duvall tornado, Robert Downey tornado, and an actual tornado.
Right. I think it's because tornadoes are cool and manly.
No, you see, Dave, they're tearing this house down.
Right.
It's
also
right
true.
there. It's
And then
right
he
there.
storms off into the tornado, which I think is a very dad thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. No. The tornado is it's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor. But the whole scene really is about Robert Downey Jr. begrudges that Robert Duvall sent him to juvie after hurting his brother's hand, because we get the reveal that he was high while driving.
Right.
And Duvall defends what he did. And here's the crux of what their problem is. Duvall was like, you were on the wrong path. You needed correction. And Robert Downey Jr. is like, I don't need to live in your world. And what I needed is you to love me. I didn't need this classic overbearing teaching dad. And so it's this classic overbearing dad versus not good enough son. And this is like a real problem, right? Because it's one where, as we talk about, like the system that we have reverence for, the thing that, Robert Duvall and almost everybody is like this, the law and what it represents. When it actually doesn't work because you like need to love your son or your family. Another trope of like what a dad should do, another principle.
Yeah.
When they come into clash, there is no kind of blueprint for dads to navigate how you navigate that clash. There's going to be a fallout. And this is that fallout. I would argue this is what this movie is kind of doing, and in its own way, I think that it's actually kind of quite good. And one of the reasons we like this movie is because I think it does try to navigate this space where I wouldn't say all dad movies do.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more emotional than I think a lot of the dad movies will cover.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's a lot drama, right?
Right.
So it's got to have that drama, and it's got to deal with dad feelings. And I do think it deals with that in a very interesting way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then we get another scene with Vera Farmiga where we basically what?
Sorry, did we skip over where he's drinking Evan Williams?
Nope.
Just want to point out that's the most dad bourbon you could possibly choose.
It's also he's a recovering alcoholic, but at this point, I guess it's like, well, I'm either going to jail or
right. He doesn't give a shit. It's one where it's like, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
Man.
It's one of those.
Robert Duvall, 80-year-old Robert Duvall, or however old you are.
Yeah, that's right. I'm about to die either way.
Yeah.
But before that, there's a scene with Vera Farmiga who's basically straight up asks, "Is my daughter in there?" And first off, she doesn't quite answer yet. This is before the scene that we actually get the reveal that you mentioned, which is that she explains, "Oh, it was your brother." So when he straight up asks, she's like, her dad would just leave and punish himself again. And I just don't care. I don't care if he's in her life.
I think
it's just like
she doesn't want to tell him because she knows he'll get mad at the truth. But also, I think she wants to let him squirm, right?
She wants to let him squirm a little bit, is what I was pointing out.
Yeah, he's got a dirty dick. We've established this.
There's a joke at some point when when some shit reveals in the court case again, because this is intercut between days of the court case, where Robert Duvall watches some footage of him actually making eye contact with the murderer, minutes before the death happened. He looks at him and he drops some egg, and it's because we learn a little bit later that he said something to Robert Duvall that like, oh, that's some fucked up shit. But at this point, he just sees that, and I think what we're supposed to believe is that he remembers some shit went down, and he basically has a stroke. And there's a scene of them like basically in the hospital. I want to mention the fun wallet because once again, there's this scene where he's like, "Here, take my wallet and go buy some stuff, Jeremy Strong." And he's like, there's a picture of a naked lady in there. And he's like, yeah, it's a fun wallet.
Right.
Which is just another dad thing.
Yeah.
We like sexy ladies on our stuff, I guess.
All right. So I would argue this is going to be a big dad thing.
Mm-hmm.
At least, like, this is 2014, you said?
Yep.
Who has that in their wallet?
Nobody.
That's a boomer dad thing where it's like Robert Downey Jr., he has a phone. Like the man has a phone, and he keeps his naked pictures on the phone. Nobody has a wallet
with
boomer dad
sexy
shit
ladies
being applied to the.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's also in that moment another thing where he has like kind of a good heart to heart with Vincent D'Onofrio, his bigger brother.
Yeah.
Where D'Onofrio says, "You don't pat me on the back and like say it's okay. I do that to you. I'm the big brother," which is another. We see the kernels turning into the popcorn kind of thing. Like, it's like that is the itemization of dad. There's a role to be filled. I have to do a thing. I have this responsibility. Otherwise, I'm seen as a failure. So that will then turn into full final form Robert Duvall, is all I'm saying. Is that like something also we might see in dad movies is the tracking of this dad system replicating itself.
Right. We're also, that's a theme of, we haven't, like the poop scene is this, it's the fact that he is now taking care of his dad, right? That's a big element. His dad is, what we're seeing is, there's layers of dad film here. Because you could have a film just about this concept, which is a proud old man having to accept that he needs help. Because he's losing his memory. He's pooping out. He's having weird nightmares.
He's pooping really out. He's pooping everywhere.
Right, but he has his pride. That's a whole element here. Robert Downey Jr. slowly making his dad accept that he needs the help from his sons.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Another detail I wanted to get before our big climax is that they go out of their way in court to establish that no one ever drove Duvall's car. Like, it's his car.
That's also a very dad thing.
It's dad thing. Like, they even say at one point, yeah, true. A man needs a car. Only he can drive.
Right.
Like, it's so, like, flippantly, like, why is this line in the movie?
Right,
why is this happening?
Evidence. That's courtroom evidence.
You can just
a man
say
only needs a car.
It's fine to say he drove the car that night and we have footage of it, but instead you're like, no, a man needs a car. So I thought that was silly.
Yeah, and it's like an old-timey car, of course.
Right.
And yeah, that is a big detail. I think the idea is like he's set in his ways, I guess.
Right.
He's possessive. It's all about like the, you know, when you're in my house, there's a lot of that. Like he literally says something to that extent at one point.
This is my kingdom. You play by my. Yeah, he says at one point, in my house you play by my rules. At your house you can play by yours.
Yeah.
And that's
Big
very
dad energy.
Big dad energy. It's just like, look, let's not talk about the argument. Let's not talk about how I fucked this up. Let's talk about how this place is mine. And as I peed on it, it's mine.
Yeah, a lot of, again, pissing. He pisses on another man. It's all about ownership.
It's all about ownership, baby. So yeah, we get back to the court case. And in the end, we learn about the flashback with Blackwell, who's the name of the murderer from the past who died. And the thing he said is, I won't have to go too far to piss on both their graves.
Yep.
Talking about his girlfriend he just killed, and also the late wife of Robert Duvall now.
Again, can't stress enough. Worse than Gotham.
Worse than Gotham.
This guy's entire character is, I'm bad. Like that's it. He's
no
just like,
reason.
I hate women and I'm bad.
Hate
and
them.
and like you could argue there's it's not that far, but like they don't try to make him a human in any way. He's just like the Joker. It's incredible. They want to make him the least sympathetic person possible.
Right. And so seeing that there's no way out of this, he has established motive. This thing looks like a done deal. Billy Bob Thornton's, basically celebrating. And Robert Downey Jr. has a choice to make.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
He
hit me with it, babe.
Well, isn't this the point where he says to him, "Do you think you killed him?" To Robert
That's
Downey
what I'm
Jr.
saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you think you did it?
Not to Robert Downey Jr., to Robert Duvall. Sorry.
Right, which is something that they kind of talked about in the hospital before. He's like, I'm not going to say something that I'm not going to lie on stand.
Yeah, basically in the hospital, he's like, I killed the bastard. And he's like, do you remember? And he's like, no. And like, he's using his judge powers to basically say, I have deemed myself guilty based on the evidence.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I mean, spoilers, it's pretty clear that he absolutely killed this man. Like, it's not ambiguous at a certain point.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, is that it's not ambiguous at a certain point, because we get all of the reason. Like, here's the thing: in order for this movie to work, the law has to work, right? Yeah. But the law can be lenient, and that's the thing: is that he deserved a little leniency, because I won't have to go far to piss on both their graves. And also, at that point, the case is over, right? Like, that's like, okay, so what else is there to do? Well, Robert Downey Jr. has this moment where he can go, well, I can plead for that leniency. I can fall upon the court and say, my dad has cancer, and that's probably why he lost time and he can't remember. He's not lying to you. He just doesn't actually recall. And so he wants to do that. And Duvall immediately is protesting, almost walking off the stand. And of course, the other judge comes in, and he's like, sir. The other judge, who is the guy who plays in 30 Rock, the president of Cabletown, by the way, who's like the wholesome, like, shucks. He's like, sir, you have every right to choose a different attorney, but you need to answer that question right now. Yep. And that's basically what happens. So Robert Duvall has to basically get cross-examined, where his son says you had cancer, which now means his entire legacy is thrown into the crapper. But that's not the part of this case that's not relevant. That's a whole different case now. So they keep going.
They go right to sentencing in this, if I recall, which I'm pretty sure that's a different court. It's a courtroom drama thing, right? Where they speed up the process.
But I'm talking about the final questions, where they're actually having
yes.
The final questions.
When he starts asking him about why did you let this guy off?
Why did you let this guy off? It's so funny to me, because it's just this is not what would happen.
Billy Bob Thornton should be like, judge, relevance,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
so much shit. Like, they're having a clear father-son moment, and that's nice, but, like, do we need to be here? Because, it comes down to essentially, like, why were you back then in the old times? You were leaning on that murderer.
Right. It should be
Why?
noted something, because Robert Downey Jr. basically was mad at his dad because he's like, you went easy on total strangers in your life, but why not me? So he's grilling him like, why did you let this guy off for beating his girlfriend?
Right.
And again, you're right. Like at this point, it's like the fucking I think you should leave sketch about the guy's hat.
It's like, why are they
Where
talking
it's like,
about
why are we
this?
doing this? But that's, of course, it's the beauty of the courtroom
It's
drama.
the beauty of the courtroom genre, baby. And it's because he says, like, I looked at him and I saw you.
Yeah.
The same recklessness, disobedience, my little boy.
And I want to
I'm
talk
like,
about that.
Yeah. So, and there's this point where Robert Duvall puts up his hand a little bit because he can't even look at him.
Yep.
You know?
So
and that works on me, Dave. I felt emotions.
Really? Okay.
Your Honor, I motion to love my father.
Yeah, it is. It's like a fucking sketch. It's
Yeah.
like something you'd see. It would be like a movie, like going back to 30 Rock. It's like a movie that Jenna would be in.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Where it's like, I'm guilty of
Overruled.
loving my son.
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to talk about this because this plays into the deadness of it all. So as we said, there's a reverence for the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole movie, at the end, the judge, he goes to jail. Spoilers. And the idea is the system worked. It was compassionate, but it worked. The system's great. What's amazing is that what they're pointing out here is exactly why our actual justice system is broken. Because, and I don't want to take too long on this, there is a well-known problem that if you go to jail for, say, sexual assault, you are more likely to be killed in jail because our jails are bad. If you go there for some sort of horrendous, like a sex crime, for that reason, a lot of rapists and sex offenders are let go in court, and the reason given by the judges is, well, I don't want them to get killed in jail. It's the Brock Turner thing. And it all comes down to a lot of judges will say, like, oh, I saw this young man and he made mistakes. What they're saying is they see their sons in these young men. They don't see that if the man, for example, has a different skin color.
Right.
And so what they're identifying here is literally why the judicial system is fucked.
Because it's a bunch of daddies.
Yes, because judges will absolutely look at young men, young white men usually, and say like, he feels bad. I'll give him I'll give him a break. And that's exactly what Duvall did. He literally admits it. I saw my son, and that guy killed his girlfriend. And they're making this like he's guilty of loving his son, and he's like, no, he's part of a large problem.
Large thinking problem.
Systemic problem with the system that this movie just glosses over. And it's so perfect as a dad film to completely gloss over the systemic issue that they're identifying.
Exactly.
It's perfect. I mean,
Well said.
it's not, the judicial system isn't perfect. This movie and its dad message is perfect.
Yeah, it's trying to do. Yeah, it's fiction. But
I don't know if you noticed this. Not that this matters. It's a honky parade. This movie.
Oh, it's a honky parade.
The
There's
only
like
black
3
character
black
is the
people in
guy
movie.
who he can't remember the name of.
Yeah, that's right. The most featured black person.
Yeah. That isn't a dad film thing. It's just this movie this time around. It was one of those things that blew me away where I realized like, oh my God, what this is saying about the system is incredible.
Yeah. He gets convicted for 4 years, but after 7 months, he gets compassionate release. And I would love to see the movie of that 7 months.
Yeah, Robert Duvall. I hope he really
as an
fucking
ex-judge, he got
put a lot of people in headlocks and shit.
Yeah.
Like he shanked a guy the first day.
He had to assert himself quickly.
Yeah.
And that's just how Robert Duvall does. And then they give him a Fredo death out in the middle of the lake.
So this is amazing. First of all, he should have shoved him off the boat. That would have been hilarious.
He should have actually killed him like
He
Fredo.
dies in a fishing boat, which is the most dad death ever.
Yeah, it's dad.
He also doesn't die. He dies. It's like the Thanos snap. He just dies. Like he doesn't say like, "Hey, I'm feeling a little funny."
Away.
He eats some candy and then he just shuts off.
And then just goes quiet. And then we see the candy wrapper hit the ground, and then Robert Downey Jr. goes, "Dad, Dad," and then it's his dead ass face.
Yeah, he just dies. It's so fucking funny to me. I know this is supposed to be emotional, but there was something just watching it through the dad lens of like dying on a fishing boat. Of unknown dad death.
Just old. Died of old.
Died of old. Like I don't even think it's the cancer because this is not how cancer works.
I mean, it's kind of is.
Well,
Something exploded in his body, Dave.
Well, yeah, I know, but like you know what I mean, where it's like people tend to go to the hospital. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's not that you just conk out in a fit. Like it's a death. It's like the death that you tell your kids is how the dog died. Where it's like, he just went peacefully.
It's very peacefully. Yeah. He didn't hurt. It didn't feel like.
I think he might have choked on the candy.
I think he might have choked on the candy, and Robert Downey Jr. could have saved him, but he just was too worried about catching that fish. But this is not until after he tells his son that he's the best lawyer ever.
Yes.
So
you're my favorite lawyer.
You're my favorite lawyer, son, basically. And so after the funeral, Robert Downey Jr. looks at the courthouse of this small Indiana town / Massachusetts, and he's like, maybe it's time to become a judge.
Yep, and he looks at the chair. And it's
he looks at the chair. And then we get a last wrap up scene where it's like, he's gonna start building. He's going to start building bridges here. He's going to start being a part of this community. And one of the part of the community is obviously Vera Farmiga. And there's a reference to an earlier scene where the first time they ever met, she fish hooked him.
Yes.
Just because they were like kindergartners or second graders or something like that. And she didn't, he tried to kiss her and she was like, "I'm going to fish hook you." And she does it at the end of the movie, which, I just thought you'd like because it's fingers in the mouth.
It is.
Dave.
It's not
That's one of your fetishes. Though. Yeah, he's got a very particular fetish. Mm-hmm. But that all happens, and that's the end of The Judge.
That's the end of The Judge. My God. What a dad film.
It's there's other law dramas as we talked about, The Rainmaker, The Firm.
Verdict. 12 Angry Men.
12
right
Angry
there
Men.
In the name.
Right there. Yeah, Time to Kill is huge.
I think we chose The Judge because maybe we're showing off our dad snob. We're like, did you know about this obscure dad film?
You need to hear
obscure dad law drama. I think it's because me and you had bonded over The Judge specifically.
Yep.
As being like such a clear dad film, and I feel like people listening to this, if you haven't seen The Judge, you probably get the vibes. Just from us describing it.
Right. You don't need to see any of these movies. Is what I think we're saying. They're all kind of the same. But this is where this is the first episode, and this is where we would really go. We going into a different section that we would call To the Smoking Room, where we would have our last remarks and conclusions and talk about what we learned about dad tropes. And this one kind of set the stage itself. I mean, we talked about a lot of these tropes. I don't think we need to really go into all of them now.
No, but I think just to quickly list it off, there's reverence, there's respect for the system. There's also respect for things, my car, my stuff, my house. There's, of course, father-son shit. Right. Or just being a dad in general is going to, of course, come into play.
Make an appearance,
I don't think there always will be, though. I don't think that'll necessarily be a thing in dad films.
Right. I don't think it always will be. And some more smaller ones is that the story often will impart something to specifically a dad's family that what their function is, words alone cannot express. That's one.
Yep. I think
we must know that the protagonist has a dick and it works.
I was about to say, I think pee and poop is going to be surprisingly in there.
We mentioned guile, or the concept of violence is only when it's necessary, and our characters usually are clever because that's the dad thing to do, the righteous thing to do.
Right.
And way in early in the episode, I mentioned that the inciting incident is a tragedy. That's something that we're going to see if that holds water.
Dead women
is also something we're going to see a lot of dead women here.
Yeah.
So stick around for that.
And the phrase dead women will go hand in hand by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's what we'll be known for.
Dead women and fucking your possible daughter. What the fuck, Judge? What is your deal? So yeah, that's kind of our episode, and I hope that you'll join us in what we're gonna do here. Is for the next 4 weeks, we're gonna do a few episodes on different genres. Regarding here's a dad movie, and let's see what about it is dad. And this list is, we looked at the internet and we saw what the internet had, and we're gonna talk about a lot of dad movies, but for this next one we wanted to talk about sports movies. So episode 2 is going to be about sports.
Do we want to reveal what movie?
Yeah, might as well, since we know. So the one that we chose, very dad movie, has to deal with death a lot. Sports movie, We Are Marshall, starring Matthew McConaughey, and Ian McShane, and a bunch of other people.
A bunch of other dads.
There's a ton of dad sports movie. We talked about Miracle. We talked about a bunch. We understand people are probably going to be like, why aren't you talking about Rudy? And it's like, yeah, we can talk about Rudy. We'll talk about Rudy, but let's pick the more obscure ones. Because the way I see it is we're trying to shepherd in all of the different tropes and get them until they're the most distilled.
Yeah, we're trying to find the granddaddy,
Yeah, so we got to start from the fringes a little bit, I think.
I would argue, when you talk about what's the best horror movie, it's not going to be the most popular ones necessarily.
Nope.
Some of them will be, because I will say, I don't want to spoil it, but we do cover what I would consider to be the most ultimate dad movie, and it is a very big movie. Naturally they will be big, but when we're talking about genre films, like best comedy, best horror, they aren't necessarily the most famous or well-known things. So just as, similarly, the best dad film isn't necessarily going to be the most famous of that genre. Yeah, and there's ones that don't fit the mold too, and I like the idea that we have the unified dad theory before we confront ourselves with, I don't know, The Patriot or Master and Commander. Right.
Because those ones are well known as the joke of that's the dad movie.
Yeah.
So more on that later. Well, that will be developing as we go along. I just wanted to address it as it is our first episode. But that's the end of the episode. Dave, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Oh,
I guess I should plug Gamefully Unemployed. That's my podcast network. If you're listening to Small Beans, you might be aware already. But if you just type in on the typey types, GAMEFULLY, Unemployed, you'll get the network I do with Tom Ryman. We do movie podcasts, and that's about it. We have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, where you can find some podcasts exclusive on there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We also do stuff with Small Beans, such as Star Trek The Next Futurama and Spiel Boys. That's all there. We watch movies on every Friday night. It doesn't matter. Just look it up. Google it. Type it.
Yeah. Wrangle your peepers around Gamefully Unemployed.
Yeah. Wrangle your dirty dicks.
Your dirty dicks. Yeah, and you know where this is. This is patreon.com/smallbeans. Throw us a few dollars, including the shows that Dave mentioned. We got a bunch of exclusive shows just for people who give us money. So if you're listening to this on the free feeds, YouTube or, through, whatever podcasting means you listen to podcasts, just know that there's a bunch of stuff you're missing out on, and check us out. If not, a tip of the hat to you, and we go our merry way until next episode, as dads do, as respectful dads do.
Exactly.
That's all I got.
And as we say on the show,
Uh-oh.
love me, daddy.
Love me, daddy. That's our catchphrase.
That's our
God
pre-planned
damn it,
catchphrase.
Dave. God damn it.
Yeah, make it a shirt.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.